guys, Sam here from Tempo, and I'm super excited about today's topic as we're going to be talking about pre-configured sites. So I've been building websites for a long time, and basically I have not really had any kind of method that I go through when I put together a site. I'll go through and manually set up the theme, set up the pages, add the plugins, and so forth. And I'm used to doing it, so it doesn't take super long, but over time, when you're working on hundreds of projects, all of that extra time setting that stuff up really makes a difference. What we're talking about today is pre-configured sites, and that's basically like a default setup installation of WordPress configured exactly the way I need it for when I'm going to start a project. So that means the theme I'm going to use, all the plugins I'm going to use, and the base settings I'm going to use, all already ready to go, and then I just deploy that package when I'm ready to create the site. That's going to save a ton of time because I'm not going to be repeating the same monotonous tasks over and over. Probably not a new concept to a lot of you. Honestly, I'm sure that there's people who've been doing this for a long time, and I've kind of had the idea in my head for a long time, but it wasn't until more recently where I started putting it together how I could easily take advantage of some of the existing stuff that's out there to do this really quickly and efficiently, and that's what I've got now. So today I'm going to be giving you a peek inside what my pre-configured site looks, why I set it up the way I did, and hopefully give you some ideas on how you can do this yourself and start saving yourself a bunch of time. So if you're ready, let's get going. Alright, thanks for sticking with me, guys. So what we've got here is a pretty unassuming site. You see that it's very basic. There's really nothing added to it at all. But what you don't know is that this is a finely honed machine ready to be deployed and optimized for fast development. So we're going to kind of dive into how I have this set up and see if maybe these type of pre-configured options will work for what you're trying to do. So as you can see, there's nothing really to look at on the front end. In fact, we're not even going to be looking at the front end anymore after this because it's pretty much irrelevant. Now we'll log in here. Wouldn't you know it? You guys ever have that error? That one's a pain, isn't it? Okay. So here we're in the dashboard. Let's first go into some of the settings. So settings general. Okay, we've got it set up on HTTP, even though this dev site can use HTTPS. Generally makes it a little bit easier to keep it as HTTP. So just got my regular contact email in there and just a default site title and tagline. Other than that, nothing really changed for the general settings. Now for posts, what I've done is I've gone in here and deleted the default post. Now we've developed a lot of sites, and a lot of times these sites don't even have a blog at all, and we never even look at the post, and as a result there's always that default post sitting in there, and sooner or later that thing's going to get indexed and then it's going to start getting spammed. You're going to get a bunch of blog comments when you don't even have a blog. So we just go ahead and completely delete that post, and we can always add them back if there's going to be posts on the site, but we don't need the sample one in there. So I always delete that. Then for pages, you'll see that we went ahead and deleted the sample page. And then what I did is I created a new page and went into settings, reading, and assigned that as my home page. That's pretty much something I do on 99% of the sites we build. So again, that saves quite a few extra clicks by doing that. And then the only other really option that I changed here is I selected discourage search engines from indexing the site. Generally that's pretty common with dev sites. You just have to remember to uncheck that when you're ready to go live. So no problem there. Now, next up, we're going to go into the themes. So you see the only theme I have in here right now is the Divi theme. I actually went to the extra trouble of deleting the WordPress themes that are installed just because, they don't really hurt anything by being there, but what happens is when they get updates available, then it's going to show on your updates that you have stuff to update, and you don't really, it's just an extra pain, and you don't need to bother with that. So we just went ahead and deleted that. The only theme we've got in here is Divi. Normally I don't run with a child theme on it, so that's not something I put in my default configuration, but it's definitely something you could put if you tend to always use a child theme, or most of the time use a child theme. It certainly wouldn't hurt. It would only take a second to get that set up and activate that instead of Divi. So that's definitely an option you could go with. So for themes, we keep it super minimal, and we just only run with the theme that we're actually going to use. And another important thing is that I've got my Divi API key entered in here that, like I said in the intro, is going to save me a ton of time every single time that I visit the site. So that's a huge one right there. So that's themes. Now, the main thing we're going to be looking at is plugins, because that is where the bulk of this stuff is. So we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total plugins, and half of them are activated and half are inactivated. So let's go over the active ones first. We've got Divi Auto Title. This will automatically add a title to your Divi modules when you create them. So this makes it a little bit easier to edit the page, and you have to have this on there first before you set up the page. If you add it afterwards, it doesn't work as well. So this one I pretty much always use, and I'm pretty sure it's pretty lightweight, so no real reason not to have that in there. And then better search and replace. I pretty much always end up using this in some capacity or another on almost every site I work on. So, and again, this one is a super lightweight plugin, so I just like to have that one just in case, because chances are I'm probably going to need it at some point. So we've went ahead and got that in there and activated it. But you could also leave this one inactive as well. Gravity Forms. That's probably one of the biggest paid plugins I use a lot. You could use Contact Form 7, and I do actually use Contact Form 7 a lot, but you know, usually it doesn't really matter between the two, and more often than not, when there's a special requirement, it requires Gravity Forms, not the other way around. So we'll just default to using Gravity Forms. And again, this one, I've got this updated to the latest version, and I've got my API key entered in there. So I don't have to go back and enter my API key or anything. I'm ready to just go right in there and start creating forms. And then Perky Animate module. Now, I did a review for this a while back. This is a plugin specifically for Divi, and I really like this plugin a lot. It takes the place of about 3 or 4 or 5 different Divi add-ons that I was using before. Now I just pretty much only use this one, and as you can see, this is really the not counting the auto title, which doesn't actually do anything except make it easier to decipher what content is on your page. This is really the only Divi add-on that I'm even using anymore. So that might surprise you, but I don't even use Divi Cloud as much as I used to. So I'm not installing that by default. I think that one's a little bit maybe heavier of a plugin. I can't really say for sure, but it definitely seems more complicated than some of these other ones. So I just don't really see any reason to have it in here when I'm probably not going to be using it a lot of the time anyway. So no Divi Cloud. The only really a design assist plugin for Divi is Perky Animate, and this covers a wide range of stuff. You can go check out my other review if you want to see that. So that's the active plugins. Now, the inactive plugins, I've left these inactive for a reason, and that's because generally we don't use these until later on. So Yoast SEO, a lot of times we don't even touch this at all. This is just for the client, or if we do need to touch it, then we can activate it whenever we need to do that. So sometimes we will copy over meta tags for a client, or we'll even go back in and optimize them for a client. In that case, we would activate it. Otherwise, this is one that can pretty much get activated at the very end. WP Rocket, again, this is like the last plugin you ever want to activate, at least as far as I'm concerned, because once you install caching, it makes it a little bit more challenging from a development perspective to work on pages. You've got to start clearing caches and stuff like that. So this is pretty much the very last thing I do is add the caching plugin. But it's nice to have it in here. And I haven't really gone into this, but WP Rocket is the plugin I've been using for caching. This is a paid plugin, but it has been working really well, so I do like it a lot, and I'm going to probably keep using this one for quite a while. So definitely a good plugin, and hopefully we'll get to that in a later video. But that's a good one to have, so you don't have to add it later on. Just the less work you have to do post-launch, the better, because sometimes that can end up taking you, a good half hour after launching the site, going through and getting all these things installed and configured. Wordfence Security, this is another one. Always is good to have a security plugin. Wordfence is the one I've been using on most sites lately, even though there's a lot of annoying stuff about it. I might change this to a different one. I've also been liking Got MLS a lot lately. I used to use iTheme Security exclusively, and really just not a fan of that one anymore. It doesn't have as many features as any of the other security plugins, and there's some annoying stuff about it too, so we can get into that more later. But for now, Wordfence. But I might be changing this to God MLS, honestly, because that one has really been, I think, performing the best. So again, that's one you could activate this now, but sometimes when you transfer a site to another server, Wordfence adds some files and stuff into your HT access as well, and that can not always, but it can cause problems when you're moving a site over. So there's been times when I've had to go through, delete those files manually, and delete Wordfence, and then add it back in again after I transfer the site. So generally speaking, you don't really need to have this on until the site's live, but it's good to have it in there so you don't have to waste time installing it later on. And you could even set this up and have it all ready to go, which I didn't take it that far. You could also do that with WP Rocket and Yoast. Actually change the configuration on them so they're all ready to go, and you just have to activate them. So that's definitely something to consider as well. And then last would be all-in-one migration. This is the newest one that I have been using a lot lately. Now, I just did a video on the duplicator plugin. This kind of does the same thing. It's for primarily for migrating your site. So we've found this to be actually more useful and better than manually migrating in a lot of cases. And even though I'm like super good at manually migrating a site and I've got it down to a science, a lot of times actually these days I just end up using this plugin because it just seems to work better. So we use this one for a lot of sites, and I'm going to be going into more detail on this plugin in a future video because it's really a pretty nicely built plugin. The free version does a lot, and it's definitely a good one. So that's pretty much it with the plugins on here. So as you can see, I like to keep it pretty simple. There is always going to be most sites are going to require some other add-on or another. Like some sites might use a calendar, some might need a different type of contact form, some might need WooCommerce. You could also have a couple different pre-configured site options. So I could have like a totally different setup for WooCommerce, and this one is based on Divi. I could have one with a blank theme based on developing a site from a PSD or something like that, where we wouldn't be using Divi, and we'd want probably stuff like advanced custom fields and things like that. So it'd be really useful. There's no real reason why you couldn't have a couple different ones. The only thing with that is that eventually you're gonna have to go back and update all this stuff, because when you do set up your pre-configured site, after about a month or a day or a week, a lot of these plugins are going to need to get updated. So eventually you're going to have to go back through and then reset all this stuff. Again, that doesn't take very long, and the whole point of this is to be fast. So that's not really that big of a deal. But anyway, I'm super excited about this concept. I know it's probably not the newest concept, and honestly, I've been thinking about this for a long time, but it's really hasn't been until recently where I finally decided to put it into action, and man, it saves so much time, so useful having all this stuff ready to go. It just makes it a lot less clunky getting started on a project, which everybody always needs more time, so this is a great way of getting more time. So anyway, hope you found that helpful. We're going to be going into all-in-one migration and WP Rocket soon, so I'll have more information for you on that, and I also got another video about Duplicator coming up, so stay tuned for that. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.